You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Good morning, good morning. We talk the whole night through. Good morning to you and you and you.
I wish I could help with that, but no one wants me singing. But Jeff, though, we need to get Jeff singing more often is what I'm thinking. We need to get him more.
Hey, last week he actually sang a couple different times. He said mailbags, and I was like, dude, he's got a good voice.
Oh, you mean like with Wesley?
Yes.
Maybe it's personal.
Yeah, no.
He chose to sing with Wesley.
He says he doesn't want to sing because I'm the singing guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, hey, good morning. How about that?
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Bible Guys. I'm Chris. This is Kyle.
Yes.
Jeff's out of town. So today we're the Bible Guys, and we are going to dive into, in a minute, Nehemiah chapter 4.
Yep, chapter 4. Yep.
Where Nehemiah has just began. We're actually skipping over chapter 3, which, by the way, is an incredible chapter. It's just kind of boring with the details, but it's incredible in that Nehemiah recruits all different walks of life of people.
Yep.
Right? He recruits masonries and engineers and soldiers even and commoners and farmers. But he recruits people from all different walks of life. He organizes everything. He gives them assignments. He asks them to start rebuilding the wall, and that took place in chapter 3. And then it's going to continue through today's chapter as well. But before we get to that, we have a segment by Desiree called Would You Rather?
Would you rather? Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like I've got 5 would you rather questions for you. You got 5 for me.
Oh, no. We both have the same 5.
Oh, with the same 5.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we'll just take turns reading them, and then we'll just sort of take a guess on answering them.
All right, here we go. I'll lead the way here. Number 1, would you rather have to communicate using only emojis or speak in Pig Latin for a week?
Ooh. So I'm assuming that means you would have to be silent for a week because you'd have to type emojis.
Type everything up.
But Pig Latin, you could actually speak out loud.
I got to be honest. I think I'd go emojis. I think I would.
I inkte ate I udwe igpe atenle orfe a weekway.
Could you imagine everywhere you go doing that? Oh my goodness. Every time you go through the Starbucks line, that's how you order your drink. Your wife at dinner, you're trying to have a conversation.
The bottom line is you couldn't go anywhere by yourself.
For sure.
You'd have to
bring an interpreter.
Did you know what I just said?
Yeah, I'm assuming you said I would speak in Pig Latin for the week.
Yes.
Eque?
But did you understand it though?
No, I would not. I would not.
It's okay. So Ilke uye ukle ikle a eferire.
No, nothing. Referee. Oh, I heard referee at the end. I'm assuming you say I look like a referee today.
That's correct. That's correct.
That was good.
So that's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, I just think it would be hard to be quiet for a week.
That would be tough. I'm gonna go emojis though.
Okay.
All right, we're different on that one.
All right, number 2. Would you rather have an adventure in Narnia or explore Middle Earth from The Lord of the Rings?
Well,
this is a crazy question.
Well, I would say, man, the listeners are going to hate me for this, but I am not a Lord of the Rings or a Chronicles of Narnia guy.
Ooh.
So this one's for you, bud.
Well, I got to be honest. It's shocking to everybody because I love movies so much, but I didn't love Lord of the Rings.
Really? Okay.
I thought it was epic. I thought it was done really, really super well. I thought it was true to the book. I thought it was in every way great, except for I don't think it was written for anybody besides the book people. I think that Harry Potter, for instance, did a fantastic job making the movie for people who knew nothing about Harry Potter. But I think The Lord of the Rings sort of didn't take the time to bring along people like me. I never read the books. Yeah. And so I think it just sort of ran through all these references and names and cities and stories and back plots. And what they did was they didn't give the time to carry people along. So it's like they just kept on going from thing to thing to thing to thing, almost in my mind, assuming that people knew what they were talking about.
Gotcha.
And I just thought to myself, I'm like, hey, the director did a great job making this movie for the fans, but I don't think the director, honestly, in my opinion, did a good job making that movie for the people who don't know anything.
Somebody who just shows up on a Friday night at the theater It might have felt lost.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you Google it right now and say, what's the big complaint about the movies, you'll read that.
Really?
Yeah, you'll read that. It was hard to understand. So I would say Narnia, because I think Narnia was prettier and more beautiful than Middle-earth.
Okay, go ahead and let us know your comments on YouTube, what you think about Chris's assessment of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and by the way, I would say most people loved Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I have a friend who every year he gets together and they watch all the Lord of the Rings. They'll do like a Saturday and they watch them all, and they'll do it with Star Wars as well. Oh man. Yeah,
and by the way, it was 15 years later when I said something like, "Hey, the enemy was." The enemy was that wizard guy, right? Like Sauron or whatever, wasn't it? And then somebody says, no, the enemy was the tower. And I go, what? I was like, if that's unclear, that's a bad movie, right? That's a bad movie. So anyway, number 3.
Yeah.
Would you rather have to wear clown shoes every day, or a jester hat with bells that jingle constantly? Ooh.
Jeez, this is forever too.
By the way, that's
every day.
Those are 2 bad choices.
Yeah, this is like, oh man, the lesser of 2 evils. I'm gonna go with clown shoes.
Me too.
Clown shoes.
Me too. It's easier to deal with.
Yeah.
And
imagine driving though.
They're on your feet. Yeah, that's rough.
There's some rough. Yeah, now that I'm saying that out, there's some rough scenarios with the clown shoes.
Yeah,
but the jester hat though.
Can you imagine with your hair?
Yeah, you're just a joke the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be a joke no matter what.
Both ways.
Hey, listen, let's be clear. There's no way you're not a joke with clown shoes.
Yeah. All right, hey, number 4. Would you rather have a family camping trip or a family cabin getaway? And obviously in Michigan where we're at, this is cabin season. Spartan, cabin camping season. Desiree, big camper. Do you know that about Desiree?
No, I did not.
Huge camper. Yep.
Yeah, so there is no question. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, King, we are not even careful to answer you. We don't even have to debate. It is a cabin getaway for me because I hate camping.
Okay, so I got to actually...
I sort of loathe it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I feel like when you mentioned heaven, people referring to hunting as heaven, this is probably like the opposite of that. The hell would be the camping. So we actually, my family and I, a few years ago, we bought a camper. We actually did the pop-up, then we bought a travel trailer, and that was so much fun. We had a lot of fun with it, for the last few years. But then last year, my brother actually bought a family cabin up north, and comparing them literally in the last couple of years, it's not even close. Family cabin for sure, because or cabin getaway, because we're able to go up there, we're able to experience some of the same things of camping, but then I go and sleep in a queen size bed afterwards, and I can shower and things like that. So currently living this right now, and I will say, in my opinion, I'll go with the family cabin getaway.
Okay, and then last one is: would you rather have the voice of Mickey Mouse or the fashion sense of a minion?
Oh wow. The Minions just wore those little suspenders, right?
Yeah.
Little blue jean suspenders.
I honestly think I would do Minion.
Yeah.
Because that's rough, but Mickey Mouse would be even rougher. These are 2 horrible choices.
Yeah, they're really bad. Yeah. You're stuck with a voice forever. Ugh. But your style sense, let's just say that maybe blue jean overalls come back around every 15 years, and you're in style still.
That's rough. Wow. Well, hey, that's our time for the segment. So let's move on to Nehemiah chapter 4, and we're going to find out that there's some enemies.
Yep. Yeah, and even in chapter 2, if for those who didn't listen yesterday, he was met with some opposition, one of them being Sanballat. And in Nehemiah 4, it says this: Sanballat was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage, and he mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends and the Samaritan army officers, "What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? Do they think they can build the wall in a single day by just offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think they can make something out of stones, or something of stones from a rubbish heap, and charred ones at that?" Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, "That stone wall would collapse if even a fox walked along the top of it." And then Nehemiah responds. He says, "Then I prayed, 'Hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders." At last, the wall was completed to half its height, around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, Ammonites and Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the wall of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. They all made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion. But when we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves, then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are getting tired, and there's so much rubble to be removed. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves. Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work. The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again, they will come from all directions and attack us. So I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall and in exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. When our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. But from then on, only half my men worked while the other half stood guard with spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. The leaders stationed themselves behind the people of Judah who were building the wall. The laborers carried on their work with one hand supporting their load and one hand holding a weapon. All the builders had a sword belted to their side. The trumpeter stayed with me to sound the alarm, which is pretty sweet visual right there. Then I explained to the nobles and officials and all the people, the work is very spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. When you hear the blast of the trumpet, rush to wherever it is sounding. Then our God will fight for us. We worked early and late, from sunrise to sunset, and half the men were always on guard. I also told everyone living outside the walls to stay in Jerusalem. That way, they and their servants could help with guard duty at night and work during the day. During this time, none of us, not I, nor my relatives, nor my servants, nor the guards who were with me, ever took off our clothes. We carried our weapons with us at all times, even when we went for water. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Good chapter there.
Yeah, and wow, there's a lot there, and poor Nehemiah. I mean, just what a task, right?
Yep.
He's not given like pure soldiers. He's not given an army.
No.
So he has to use the people, and it's sort of like, you know, it reminds me. Have you ever seen that movie, The Patriot?
Oh, yeah.
With Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Bunch of ragtag group of...
Yeah. So he's mobilizing and training farmers, you know, with pitchforks, right, to become soldiers, and turns out that they were pivotal in history for our country. Those militia.
That's very cool.
But anyway, that's sort of what's happening here. Nehemiah is, you know, tasked with protecting the city because he's hearing of people's plans to come and tear down the wall and attack them. And you know what's so great? This is a word picture of how we should live our lives. You know what it reminds me of is, I'm doing some cross-referencing here, but the story of Gideon in the Bible, where God says, hey, have the people drink, and the people who stick their head down and lap like a dog, get rid of them. But the people who cup the water and bring it up to them, keep those people. And I learned through study that it's the people who went for a drink and who still were on guard, and they didn't make themselves defenseless. They stood upright. They sat upright on their knees, and they brought water to their hands, you know, from their hands to their face. They were able to still have a sword in their hand, and they were still to be on guard. Those were wise and prudent people. The people who just ran to the river, threw their sword down, and stuck their face in the water, God said, get rid of those, because those people...
They're not ready.
Yeah, they're not prudent. They're not, they were defenseless, right? They didn't have that wherewithal. They didn't have that wisdom of being on guard. And if you think about it, it's sort of the way that God calls us to live our lives, right? So we should always, be on guard to protect our families. At the same time, we're doing tasks at hand. It also reminds me of the spiritual realm, right? So we're busy about doing things, recognizing that there's a spiritual realm that could attack us at any minute, that we should be on guard spiritually. It's a great, prudent look on how we should be as leaders who run our home, how we run our businesses, right? We should always be busy, and at the same time, be aware of what could happen. That includes preparations. That includes future planning. It's all those things. It's just a great big word picture.
No, that's really good, because if you think about it, I mean, Nehemiah trusted that God was going to provide. He really did. He believed that that there's an end goal here. There's an end game that God was going to provide. God already had provided and opened up doors. But yeah, you're right. He still was prudent. He still gave them and wanted them to have these tactical ways to defend themselves. Because as it mentioned at the beginning, you kind of alluded to the Patriot. It says, what does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? So he didn't qualify, or he didn't call on the people who were those soldiers, those military warriors, leaders. Instead, he just gave them a practical, wise step. And one of the things that stands out to me is it says, when it said the laborers carried on their work with one hand supporting their load and one hand holding a weapon. I know you kind of alluded to that as well, but isn't that wild? Think about, like, one hand you're trying to do the work, one hand you got your weapon ready to defend yourself. And you're right, that is the way we need to live. We need to be on guard. We need to be wearing that protection from the enemy, wearing protection even from ourselves and the things that go on in our lives. But also, I think there's one of the things that's mentioned in the Life Application Study Bible as it relates to this verse. It says that the workers were spread out along the wall, so Nehemiah devised a plan of defense that would unite and protect his people. Half the men worked while the other half stood guard. Christians need to help one another in the same way, because we can become so afraid of possible dangers that we can't get anything done. By looking out for each other, we'll be free to put forth our best efforts, confident that others are ready to offer help when needed. So don't cut yourself from others. And I think that's so important, because even here he's alluding to the fact that essentially one person was watching while one person was working. And it's a reminder of how we need people in our lives. There was none of this could have been done on their own. And instead we needed people. And you see in military times, even how, because it's very, I don't know why it's bringing up military thoughts here, but the fact that a lot of times when guys go into a place, they go back to back. You know, it's like the movements, like a lot of times when they say military people, when they're going in, they're taking over a place, the way they stand back to back, the way they're essentially not even thinking about themselves. They're trusting the person has their back behind them. And there's a lot of trust that's in that. And in the same way, I think we need to live our lives with other believers and other people in our lives in the same way, letting them, like, trusting them, letting them watch our back and help us out when we can't help ourselves out.
And you know what's interesting is that so I love this where it says, first of all, they're mocking by asking these questions. They say, do they think they can build the wall in a single day just by offering a few sacrifices? In other words, like delusions of grandeur, right? And then he says, do they actually think they can make something of stones from a rubbish heap and charred ones at that? Which means that what the people are doing is they're taking the rocks that were already there that are charred, and they're using them for the wall. And then they're also using random rocks from rubbish heaps, right? Just anything. So they're not taking their time to construct what perhaps, the empire, the Babylonian Empire or the Persian Empire or the Roman Empire later on would come along and say, hey, we're going to fashion rocks and cut them and fit them and fashion them together like this fortified wall. They're literally taking just random rocks. These aren't calculated things. They're throwing together from rubbish heaps, and they're trying to place together as best as they can. Now, here's what's interesting, is that it actually says, Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, that stone would collapse even if a fox walked along the top of it. Here's what's interesting, is that parts of the walls of Nehemiah are still standing today. Did you know that? So actually, think about this. Think about this. So here's a wall that they're making fun of. That's saying this isn't even a wall. Even if a fox ran across it, would fall. And yet here we have 2,500 years later, parts of Nehemiah's wall is still standing today. And most scholars, I would say the majority of almost all scholars, believe that this is Nehemiah's wall based on its location and then also based on its construction, because the construction is, it looks exactly like that. In fact, if you've ever seen a photograph of Nehemiah's wall, other walls from Jerusalem look very polished, right, in modern Jerusalem, right? But in old Jerusalem, it's actually you can see they're all jagged, and it looks like a hodgepodge wall, and yet I believe that it's God's sovereignty. It's his it's a statement about who he is and about Nehemiah's mission and about God's faithfulness.
Yeah, we're thankful when our buildings stay up over 100 years here.
Right.
Right. In our state, we're like, oh man, it's an over 100-year-old building. That feels old.
Yeah, I believe that God has allowed parts of Nehemiah's wall to stand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because of this.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting how Nehemiah does something in faith. I'm sure that as they're getting mocked, they feel inadequate. They're not Masonaries, at least most of them. Yeah. They're not professionals. And they're probably thinking, I wonder if what I'm doing is going to last. Yeah. Little did they know.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That it's still today.
It makes me think
parts of it.
Have you ever been to the Heidelberg Project in Detroit? It's basically a street and a half in Detroit, in the neighborhoods of Detroit that's basically just an art constellation type thing where basically an artist came in 10, 15 plus years ago in a very rough neighborhood, and there's all these abandoned houses essentially. He bought the properties and turned it into this art project where you go down there.
Oh, I have seen this.
It's a little wonky. Like, it's definitely
there's arts in the trees along the yard.
There's a bunch of stuffed animals. There's old cars, but they're decorated. There's pieces of art. It's when you realize what they did is they essentially did this in a way where they took charred, broken down, torn up things and made it into something beautiful. And you go down that street, and I remember when I first went there, and it might have been 15 years. Like when Detroit has made a huge comeback, but this was a time when it was like there wasn't a lot of hope. There wasn't a lot of beauty even to be found after the bankruptcy and whatnot. It was a rough time for the city of Detroit. I remember going down there and just thinking how cool it was to take something that had been broken and make it beautiful out of the ashes, right? To see that street come alive. In fact, it's still a very popular tourist destination for people who go down to the city. But I think it's actually a picture of our lives too, right? How God works, right? He takes the charred, he takes our past, our history, our mistakes, our breakups, our family land, like all the things that we think are broken, and he makes it whole and complete. And the whole gospel of Jesus. Even at the time when Jesus was first, the name of Jesus first being spread, they're like, don't worry about it. Like, where was it where they said, if this is from God, we won't be able to stop them. Like that, like I said about Jesus, if this is a movement of God, we will not be able to stop them. And here we are with this wall. If this is from God, we're not going to be able to stop it. And here, like you're saying, 2,500 years later, it's still standing. It's amazing. Yeah,
I've always liked that passage. That was Gamaliel who said that on the Sanhedrin. Yeah. So that's just incredible. So what other sermons do we have? We're approaching our time. We see the enemies are opposing us, and maybe this is another sermon. Maybe we should talk about this, and that is when you decide as a Christian to take a stand for what is right, even if you're the only one, and even if there are people who mock you, and there are people who will try to publicly humiliate you. I remember, for instance, there was this one conversation where this person I was with in a group setting admitted that they were still a virgin. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Oh yeah, I'm a virgin, and I believe that God created sex for marriage, and I believe that I want to wait for these kinds of things." And they were in a group of people who, in fact, I think there were probably even some believers in that group. And one of them even said, "Isn't that a little bit old-fashioned idea? You don't actually believe that that's something that's in the Bible, do you?" And the people who weren't Christians, which were most of them, made fun of him. Huh. And I remember feeling bad in that moment, but then I only felt bad for a split second because this person had such confidence and such resolve and did not care at all what anybody said when they were mocking him, and said, "Well, absolutely, it's what I believe, and I know that I'm right." Awesome. And I know it because that's what God says. And so, I love the fact that I'm doing this. And I just remember thinking to myself, golly, like I didn't even have to speak up. I didn't even have to come to this person's defense because this person had that much confidence. And so, listen, if somebody around you is making you feel smaller because of your faith, don't ever back down because of it. Yeah. Be confident. That's because Nehemiah and this feeble group of Jews could have easily been intimidated. They could have easily had their spirits broken. They could have easily lost hope, but they didn't do any of those things. No. Instead, they diligently moved forward, confident in believing what Nehemiah said about God.
Yeah.
Right? God will be with you.
Yeah.
God is gonna be with you because He said these things. These are the promises of God. So let's not ever doubt that.
That's good. That's a good reminder. Great challenge too.
Yep. Cool. So that's all of our time together. So hopefully we will see you tomorrow on the Bible Guys.
See you.